Many games from the Xbox library are not compatible with 360. 476 games were supported, with the remainder being blacklisted. But that doesn't mean that they won't work should you use a modded 360 to remove the blacklisting. That being said, there is a catch. While many blacklisted games run fine, plenty won't boot or have major graphical issues. Ironically, even some of Microsoft's approved games have issues. If you wanted to find out whether a game was compatible or not, you would need to visit their website to see the list of approved games. These days, however, there's a much better site to refer to, consolemods.org. This community is actively testing Xbox originals on 360 while reporting their findings. Back in the day, this would have been very useful, as it's a great tool for discovering what issues exist for the approved titles. Most games will have some discrepancies from the original hardware, typically being a lower frame rate. That's common, with some games suffering from this more than others. Beyond slowdowns, you may come across other problems. Crash Twinsanity and Mercenaries were approved games, but are known to crash the system. Others, like Red Dead Revolver, have missing textures. Now, don't go thinking even for a second that someone got lazy here, because being able to emulate original Xbox games on the 360 is beyond impressive. Technical wizardry, really. One of the 10 developers who worked on the Fusion emulator, Michael Brundage, has opened up about the process on his website. He writes, "Xbox backwards compatibility was probably the hardest technical challenge of my career. The Xbox and Xbox 360 have almost nothing in common except for the brand. Half of the Xbox team believed this to be an impossible task. I can't imagine what would top this in terms of sheer technical difficulty." With that said, let's expand our curiosity and see how some of the unapproved games play. We're just scratching the surface though. After all, there's almost 1,000 games for the Xbox. Can't test them all. So here's my first collection of games, which consists of all blacklisted titles. I'm not testing these games extensively. Playability may vary based on extended sessions. 007 From Russia with Love.
A dry martini. Shaken, not...
Okay, maybe this isn't the best game to be starting with. Nonetheless, once the game had begun, I noticed a glass spotlight covering a fifth of the screen. Frame rates are quite poor most of the time. Advent Rising. It ran alright for the most part. Significant slowdowns during combat though. According to the compatibility list, once you've reached the first planet, the game's frame rate tanks. I played for almost an hour and didn't get there. I'll just take their word for it. Animaniacs, The Great Edgar Hunt. First seemingly perfect game of the day. Despite the unsupported status, I couldn't find a single issue with this one. Area 51.
Follow me, specialist.
Whoa. No.
Good.
BloodRayne. There are a couple series that have just one approved game on the list, with their sequel or prequel adventures being left behind, even though said games are playable. Speculation, but maybe there was a limit on how many games could pass, so instead of 2 BloodRayne games, you get just one, but also sneakers. The unapproved BloodRayne has a fair bit of frame skipping, but it's still more playable than some of the listed titles, and we'll look at some of those later. Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30. Played the intro scenes, but crashed shortly after. Cold Fear. It was going great until I came across this first enemy here, and then the game crashed. Dead Man's Hand. It tries to load the menus, but crashes after a certain point, which is a shame because I really wanted to try this one. Deus Ex Invisible War. So, the cutscenes are super laggy, but the game actually runs fine. Until I took the elevator, where it then crashed.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Dukes of Hazzard. Another seemingly flawless experience. Fireblade. Textures glitch across most surfaces, including the very helicopter you pilot. As a result, the game slows down frequently. I also noticed that one of the in-game functions freezes the screen until you disable it. Really weird. I doubt this is fully playable. Hot Wheels Stunt Track Challenge. No problems here. Mace Griffin Bounty Hunter. Oh, where did Mace go? Mace Griffin technically runs smooth, but you really shouldn't bother with this one because if you ever pause the game, you'll get this intense blooming effect. Okay, so just don't pause the game. Well, then I got hit by an enemy and the same thing happened, so... NARC. Runs a bit too fast most of the time. Best play this on something else. MechAssault. While the frame rates don't impress in heavier battles, it seems largely playable. The problem here is the navigation of menus without any way to distinguish your actions. What if I told you that there is a way to fix this? The community has made efforts to enhance the existing Fusion emulation with modified XEX files. The result is improved compatibility and a speed boost in several games. For today, however, we'll be sticking with the stock emulator only. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. It all seems to work fine, but the moment you're in a race, the entire screen goes black. Need for Speed Underground. Another instance of a sequel being approved, but not the original for some reason. Underground 1 runs fine, with small frame rate drops on occasion. Very playable. Powerdrome.
Let's do it!
It looks great until you go outside. Now my eyes hurt. Project Snowblind. The game's title never ends up showing. Trying to enter the menu results in a crash. Puyo Pop Fever. So here's an oddity. On the official compatibility list, it says that this game is compatible, but only the North American version. It doesn't exist! Does this release of the game work on an unmodded PAL 360? Well, that's for someone over there to try, I guess. How's it run for me? Fine, no problems. Psi-Ops. From my gameplay session, I didn't notice a single drop in frame rate, no hiccups, no glitches. Seems like a great way to play this one. Rayman 3. Okay, so there's no music. No voices either by the sounds of it. After Murphy drops you into the second act, the game crashes. Guess we got Rayman 3 HD for a reason. RollerCoaster Tycoon. Crashes just before the menu. Shrek. Plays too fast. And there's some texture issues to boot.
Merlin!
Special Forces Nemesis. Runs fine as far as I can tell. 15 minutes of the most obvious tutorials ever, and they're still not done? Superman Returns. From the ocean, apparently. Plays great beyond its laggy cutscenes. No noticeable slowdowns, although there were a couple very short hiccups. TimeSplitters, Future Perfect. Everything's cool until you enter the game, where you'll find that the analog sticks are improperly recognized. As a result, the camera bounces up and down constantly, and there's really not much you can do about it. That is, unless you decide to buy a Rock Candy Afterglow controller. The rumor is that these controllers have Xbox original profiles in them. No idea why. I haven't got one to show you, but if I did, I could demonstrate how it also fixes TimeSplitters 2, Star Wars Obi-Wan, and Second Sight for the same problem. Unreal 2. Loading times can be brutal on this one. After the first cutscene plays, the game will crash. But as it turns out, this game works fine so long as you install its official update. Trying to install it with the original Xbox package is not advised. This didn't fix the problem. Here's what worked for me. I ran the game at least once to create a directory. Copied the updates U folder to Unreal 2's Game ID folder in T-Data. To know which folder represents the game, you need the Game ID. You can use this website to find it, link in the description. The T-Data folder will match the Game ID number. I then replaced Unreal 2's default XPE with the new one. Remember to copy, not cut. And voila! This game never ran particularly good on Xbox, and it may be running slightly better here. Unreal Championship. No necessary title update for this one. During loading, there's supposed to be a bar that shows, but these screens are usually just static images for some reason. I've noticed various sound effects can go mute, but the game otherwise runs flawlessly. World Racing. Pretty low frame rates on the maps with more activity. Should be expected though. These are huge openly traversable maps in what is a surprisingly good-looking Xbox original. X-Men Next Generations. Didn't notice anything wrong beyond a flickering loading screen. So those were all the blacklisted games I tried. While we're here, might as well take a look at some approved games before we wrap things up. Counter-Strike. The screen goes black while loading, which will have you wait a really long time. I actually thought the game crashed, but nope, it came back. Frame rates are a bit unstable, but it's tolerable. Darkwatch. Don't miss out on this one. Not only is it an excellent first-person shooter, it runs at a smooth 60 frames per second without noticeable issues. The Great Escape. Sometimes character dialogue won't play, which can be circumstantial to your objectives. Everything else was good.
I will need your help later. Come back then.
If you played through the game before and know exactly what you're doing, then it's probably not going to be an issue. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So this listed game is, according to many, hardly playable at all.
But Mum...
At first I was thinking, okay, how did this make the list? Because immediately you've got unskippable cutscenes that run at a snail's pace. Then I finished the outdoor tutorials, and it did get better. That isn't to say it doesn't lag anymore, it does quite often. I suppose this is playable enough, but it's strange how this makes the list when others don't. Raze's Hell. I found the framerate is more consistent on the original Xbox, but it's still okay here. Certain graphical effects can briefly glitch, but that's uncommon. Serious Sam. I played this through many times on the Xbox 360. The effect used to teleport enemies into the map can spaz out on a couple levels. Here in Moon Mountains, you can see it swapping out for the waterfall texture. Once you get a serious bomb, be careful because using it's caused my game to crash a few times. But not this time. The constant screen tearing is bothersome. Oh well, it's fully playable and mostly fine. Shamu's Deep Sea Adventures.
Cool relic.
Looks fine to me. Simpsons Hit and Run. I noticed some screen tearing, but at least for me, I've always found it pretty easy to ignore.
Hey!
SpongeBob Movie Game. Silky smooth, but based on my history of play, I've encountered situations where textures are assigned to the wrong entities. Same goes for the Battle for Bikini Bottom game as well. Super Monkey Ball Deluxe. Dude, what are you saying? Text is off sync. The game's performance is fine up to a point. I recall specific stages later into the game having major frame drops. I tried some of the mini-games. A compatibility list says that Monkey Fight DX is unplayable due to a graphical issue, but that didn't happen for me. Sometimes the CPU wouldn't move, though. Another issue I've heard of is this black screen glitch in Monkey Soccer DX, and I was able to replicate this one. Wow, there's a lot of problems in this officially supported game. Gotta get that monkey ball fix, am I right? Did you know that over time some games were removed from the compatibility list? Some of these games had significant issues, like 007 Nightfire, where 5 of its 12 missions are unplayable. While playing Xbox originals on 360 isn't nearly as exciting as it was back then, it's still a great choice for playing these older games. Your only other options are the more modern Xbox consoles, which have far less compatible games. Alternatively, you could emulate them on a PC. That scene's finally shaped up in recent years. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to hear more from me in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. See you next time!